When the Black Death plague hit medieval England, it left a trail of destruction in its wake. Up to half of the population was wiped out by the plague, which makes you wonder, what happened to all the bodies of the Black Death plague victims? Imagine this, the year is 1348 and you're just a poor, humble monk from a small parish in the countryside near London, England. You live an ordinary monk's life, serving a poor, rural people. But today is no ordinary day. Today, you've taken the long journey from the countryside into the city to attend the royal courts. You can scarcely believe it, but today you're going to be speaking to the King of England. You can't help but be excited, even if your mission here is a grim one. After waiting for hours in a crowded outer chamber, you're finally summoned into His Majesty's presence. You're sweating profusely under your monk's robes as you focus on making it through the formalities without embarrassing yourself or accidentally insulting the king. Your Majesty, you say, there's a plague preying upon your loyal subjects. The first sign of illness is a sudden fever and weakness, which quickly progresses to swollen lumps in the armpits, neck, and groin, followed by a blackening of the skin. Most who catch this dreadful disease die a horrible, painful death within just a few days. Yes, the king says irritably. I'm aware of this pestilence. There have been reports from all over the realm for months now. What exactly do you expect me to do about it? Shouldn't you monks be praying about it or something? Uh-oh, this isn't going the way you'd hoped. You scramble to turn things around. Of course, your Majesty is right. Your faithful people do not blame you for the plague, nor did they expect you to end it. Sire, the reason I've come all this way is rather more practical. Well, what is it then? Get on with it. It's the bodies, sire, you say in a rush. They're piling up faster than we can bury them. Well, get some more grave diggers, shouts the king. Of course, your Majesty, excellent advice, but the thing is, we're quite rapidly running out of room for the bodies in our graveyard. In the last week, we've had dozens of deaths in just our small parish alone, and it's only getting worse by the day. The huge number of bodies that must be buried are quickly filling up our little graveyard and threatening the prime plots reserved for our gracious nobles. We'll be out of space completely in a matter of days at this rate. Now, the king actually looks worried. We knew this plague was bad, he says, but we had no idea it was this deadly. We've heard of a few cases around the city, but nothing like what you describe. If what you say is true, and if it were to spread to the cities, we would be drowning in bodies. The king is quiet for a few moments as he ponders all that you've told him. Finally, he looks at you and says, It's settled then, monk. I'm making you my official master of body disposal. You are charged with overseeing all aspects of the handling and disposal of the bodies of the victims of this dreadful plague. You have the full backing of the crown and all of our resources available to you, so there's no excuse for failure. You can't believe it. You don't know what you were expecting, but it was not this. You're grateful you'll have all the resources you need to help your parish, but the new responsibility you have is daunting, to say the least. The king has already dismissed you and moved on to his next petitioner, so you carefully leave the chamber, being careful never to turn your back on His Royal Majesty, and begin the long journey home. You have a lot to think about. By the time you arrive back at your church, you are full of plans and ideas. The first order of business is to use your new power and influence to secure some extra land. Using the king's resources, you purchase several acres of land adjoining your graveyard from a local lord and quickly consecrate it, since being buried outside of an official church graveyard was considered a terrible fate for your eternal soul. Next, you turn your attention to the burial practices themselves. Before the plague broke out, people were used to being around death and bodies. People died at home, their bodies were laid out in the church for a few days of prayer and vigils, and the church's graveyard did double duty as a public gathering space. The bond between the living and the dead was strong, and the dead were kept close at hand. But with the fear of the plague spreading as fast as the disease itself, people are starting to fear the dead, believing their bodies might spread the disease. One of the most radical measures you implement is a ban on some traditional funeral practices. Families will no longer be able to have their loved one's body displayed in the church, and family members won't be allowed to attend the burial, which will take place more quickly. Another huge change will be the shift from individual burials to mass graves. Instead of individual graves, which take up more time and space, large pits are dug and the bodies are wrapped in shrouds and carefully arranged in rows until the pit is full. You take care to ensure that each and every departed soul receives appropriate funeral rites, even if it's a shared, stripped-down, more practical version. Finally, in a stroke of self-professed brilliance, you sprinkle the earth near the pits with vinegar, since you believe it helps to stop the spread of the plague. A few weeks later, although the plague continues to rage, the body situation in your parish is much more under control. You're feeling pretty good about yourself and the progress you've made when a messenger arrives with an urgent summons from the king. He wants to see you in London immediately. This can't be good. The king barely lets you through your kneeling and groveling before he tears into you. You're supposed to be my master of body disposal. I put you in charge of managing the bodies from this dreaded plague. So why, pray tell, are the bodies piling up in the streets of my city? You know you need to act quickly to save your own neck, literally. The king has a reputation for separating the heads of those who displease him from their bodies. By some miracle, though, you escape with your head intact. But you also have a huge new responsibility, clearing the bodies of the Black Death plague victims from the king's cities. You know you won't be given another chance to redeem yourself. You get right to work tackling the new challenge of managing bodies in an urban setting. Although the king told you of the shocking methods he's heard about being used in other countries, such as burning the bodies or burying them on unconsecrated ground, you can't bring yourself to violate your religious vows even in the midst of a plague. So you implement the same changes to funeral rites and burial practices as you did in the countryside, but you quickly realize that much more drastic measures will be needed in the densely populated urban areas. You order mass graves to be dug on any plot of available land throughout the city to accommodate the tens of thousands of bodies. These plague pits, as they would go on to be known, are much larger and deeper than the modest mass graves in the countryside. In some areas, bodies are stacked as much as 6 feet deep before a pit is filled in. In the densely populated cities, fear and hysteria can spread just as fast as the disease itself. To combat the fear, you implement a law that requires any home with a sick person in it to be marked with a red cross and the occupants to be sealed inside. You assign watchers to keep guard over marked homes to ensure no one leaves and to pass along supplies. People are rightfully unnerved at the sight of the bodies being moved through the cities, so you hire teams of searchers and bearers to handle the bodies at night under the cover of darkness. Searchers are people, usually women, whose job it is to examine dead bodies and determine if they died of the plague. Bearers would pull a cart through the city streets at night, calling out, "Bring out your dead!" and collecting the bodies of plague victims who had died during the day. Due to the unsavory nature of their jobs, searchers, bearers, and gravediggers were forced to identify themselves publicly and remain apart from society, which suited most of them just fine, as the bearers and gravediggers were usually rough, drunken men, and they were even known to rob the corpses of the victims. Sadly, like up to half of the population of England, you, our brave and ingenious monk, will not survive the Black Death plague. Despite your best efforts, an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of the population of London died in the plague. So you might have succumbed to the disease yourself, although we wouldn't be surprised if you met a more sinister end at the hands of the displeased king. But your legacy lives on, and modern scientists, architects, and even developers continue to find evidence of your work all over England. Plague pits have been unearthed all over modern London. There's the Lincolnshire mass grave with 48 skeletons, including 27 children, stacked neatly in rows. Charterhouse Square in Farringdon has the largest mass grave in London, home to an estimated 50,000 victims of the Black Death plague. Historical records tell us that the Bishop of London purchased a property outside the city dubbed No Man's Land to bury plague victims, and that when it quickly filled, a local landowner bought the adjacent 13-acre property, where excavations had revealed bodies stacked 5 feet deep in places. From historical records, we can also learn about the immediate aftermath of the hasty mass burials of plague victims. Sources mention many annoyances in the wake of the plague, including terrible stenches as bits of coffin, shroud, and decomposing bodies found their way to the surface. Churches spent small fortunes filling and leveling the sites of these plague pits to deal with the unpleasantness. The East Smithfield Cemetery in London was used only during the Black Death of 1348 to 1349, so the 600 bodies buried there can tell us a lot about the plague victims. From studying these skeletons, we've learned that the death rate among royals and higher nobility was as low as 5%, compared to 45% among the clergy. Researchers Sharon N. DeWitt from the University of South Carolina and Marianne Kowaleski from Fordham University published a paper in 2017 about the Eastfield bodies, and they concluded that the elderly, those who were impoverished, and those who suffered relatively poor health faced higher risks of death than their younger, wealthier, and healthier peers. The plague left social legacies too. The labor shortages resulting from the staggering death rates accelerated the decline of serfdom and the rise of the peasant class, as new opportunities opened up to the poor indentured serfs. The Black Death also drastically changed the way people thought about death. Once accepted as the inevitable conclusion to a well-lived Christian life, death was now a thing to fear, something that could strike you down without warning and wipe out entire families and communities. The horrors of what happened to the bodies of Black Death plague victims forever changed the relationship between the living and the dead. If you thought this video was fascinating, then you have to check out our other videos, like this one called "Where Did All the Titanic Bodies Disappear To?" Or you might like this other video instead.